Hey, welcome everybody to the Heat Team Monthly Call. My name is Deb Rudloff, and I am a former journalist, and I turned into a stay-at-home mom after that. And then after that, I got my master's in holistic nutrition, and I've been with the Juice Plus company for 34 years now. It's amazing to me that I've been with anything this long. Tonight, I have the extreme pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, Dr. Paul Stricker. So I'm going to read his bio here. Paul Stricker, MD, is one of a small niche of pediatricians in the U.S. who is board certified in sports medicine. He completed pediatrics at Arkansas Children's Hospital and a sports medicine fellowship at UCLA, and was an All-American swimmer in college. After dedicating 7 years as a team physician at Vanderbilt University and providing care for numerous U.S. national teams, Dr. Stricker achieved a distinguished milestone in his career. His expertise and commitment to sports medicine were recognized when he was selected by the U.S. Olympic Committee to serve as a physician for the United States team at the Sydney Olympics. He previously served as president of the American Medical Society for Sports Medicine and as a member of the executive committee of the American Academy of Pediatrics Council on Sports Medicine and Fitness. Dr. Paul speaks frequently across the nation on important issues pertaining to youth sports pressure and preventive health. Dr. Stricker has authored numerous medical publications and a book for parents and coaches entitled Sports Success RX, Your Child's Prescription for the Best Experience. He has been cited in such national publications as U.S. News and World Report, USA Today, Parenting Magazine, and has been featured on ESPN, Good Morning America, Nightline, and other television and news programs. He is so empowered by the preventive health benefits of our food that he is in the process of obtaining his culinary medicine certification to add to his credentials. He currently resides and has his medical practice in San Diego, California at Scripps Clinic. Wow, that's quite a resume. And I'm really proud of you for going after the culinary part. That's I didn't even know that existed, so I can't wait to hear more about that. But tonight I wanted to ask you a few questions. And um, number one is your bio includes your stint as Olympic team physician at the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia. And you mentioned to me that following that, you ran the Olympic Training Center in San Diego for 7 years. That's a lot of time spent around elite athletes. What do you think sets these athletes apart?
And thanks so much for having me. I was thinking about the questions that you sent me, and I wanted to let you know that since my entire career is sports medicine, I actually jotted some notes down so that I could condense 33 years of practice into these questions. So thank you for letting me kind of do that. But yeah, over the years of working with elite high schoolers and NCAA national teams in the Olympics, you do start to develop a sense of some similarities between all of them. And certainly we all know that there's got to be some genetic advantage to some of these athletes, there's no doubt. But the other things that I think that are more across the board that are equal and can be shared by anyone is that they're very dedicated to putting in all that effort. It's an incredible amount of dedication and also an incredible amount of discipline that allows them to continue those routines year after year for the long term. They're usually very open to coaching, and they don't think that their way is the only way. They're also very flexible with change because a lot of these kids, their families may move somewhere, so they may all of a sudden have a new team or a new coach, and so they have to be very adaptable to those kinds of changes. They're usually very mentally strong to deal with not only the grueling competition stress, but also the grueling schedules, the training, and the injuries that come up with that. And I found another thing that's super important is that they usually have incredible family support. I think that's an irreplaceable part of that. And most of those young people actually love and really enjoy their sport because if they don't, it's just not able to. They're not able to hang on to that long. So those are the things that I've kind of found over the years that seem to be very consistent between most of the elite athletes.
Okay, thank you. Well, as a lifelong athlete yourself, how is nutrition addressed when you were younger, and has the attitude toward nutrition changed over the years for athletes?
Yeah, well, I think that's it's a great question. It made me laugh because that's a huge difference between when I was in college and where things are now. Nutrition is now a science, that athletes know down to the spec. But when I was competing and training, nutrition wasn't addressed. That was the whole problem, because at that time, any kind of improvement in performance was felt to be completely related to just more training. So more intensity, more volume, more hours, just all that stuff. And clearly it's just simple math. It's not sustainable if you don't have enough nutritional fuel. So at some point they realized, of course, that nutrition was key to all of that. So, but when I was going through that, I kind of hit a plateau, and my coach just thought I wasn't eating enough. So he was like, "You got to eat." So I did burgers, fries, donuts by the dozen. But little did I know that there's at that time a huge difference between calories and calories with value, and that's something that I've lived with now for many years because the junk food I was eating provided some calories, but it's called empty calories for a reason because they come with no other value. And so, with the healthy macronutrients of carbs and fats and proteins from healthy sources, that has value because they bring with them micronutrients from those whole foods that then not only help protect you, but contribute to long term health. So certainly there are world-class athletes that still eat junk food, no doubt. But I think over time, many, many more of them are now realizing that the sources for their energy and the storage of their energy needs to come from foods that actually provide calories with value.
That makes a lot of sense. So I got to ask, when were you introduced to Juice Plus and what convinced you to try it?
Well, as far as the timing goes, I had started my job in San Diego right at the same time I had gone to the Olympics, and so as the team doctor. And at that point, one of my jobs was to evaluate all of the supplements that the athletes were taking to make sure that they were safe and et cetera. And actually, we found out that we didn't know much about them at all. It was an area of concern because we couldn't find research behind them. We didn't know if we could trust the label of ingredients, and so that experience
Kelsey,
alone,
are you okay? What?
that
We're interrupted. Let's see. Okay.
that that
Go on.
experience,
Sorry.
okay, no problem. That experience alone made me come up with a list of 3 criteria of things that I started to use when I was looking at any kind of a product or supplement. The first thing was the labeling. Second thing was a source of credibility. And the third was any kind of source of true scientific research. So I had been kind of developing that in my mind. And then 3 years later, my nurse told me about the whole food powders of Juice Plus. And I knew personally I wasn't eating enough fruits and vegetables. And so Juice Plus got my attention. So I looked at it. I said, okay, here's my criteria, right? So I looked at the labeling, and it has a food label because it's just food. And I thought, wow, interesting. I'd never seen a food label before. Everything was always a supplement or a vitamin label. So I thought that was totally cool because they've taken the whole food powders from 30 fruits and vegetables and berries grown by specific growers, grown clean, grown to full ripeness, then harvested, ground up, all the water's taken out, and boom, you're left with all this great powder. Each batch is tested for herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals. So right there alone, that food label was very intriguing. So then my second criteria was a source of credibility. So there's NSF certification, which is super important because athletes need that if they're at a high level and they might be at risk for a drug test from winning a competition. So that shows safety. And then the other source of credibility is consumer labs. Anybody can go to consumerlabs.com and look up anything. And if they've evaluated it, they've looked independently at the ingredients versus the label and can tell you if that's the real deal or not. And so it has that also source of
Yeah, but
credibility.
hang on one second. I'm going to make Heidi host.
Nikki, you're not muted.
So then the third thing was the research. And this is what I think totally sold me. This was the kicker. Juice Plus itself is the most researched nutritional product of its kind in the world. And so currently, after 20 something years of research, there's now 48 published clinical studies that are performed independently all over the world. These are not done at the Juice Plus office. And so as a physician, that's incredibly powerful, not only for my own confidence of eating it, and knowing the health benefits it provides, but also I have to say this is more research than any of the medications that I write prescriptions for. So that
Oh,
gives me a lot of confidence.
wow, that's interesting. Okay, well, next is, many famous elite athletes have been switching to plant-based diets. So does nutrition really have an influence on athletic performance?
Absolutely. I think this is the key here. That word performance is the absolute key. Most athletes, even way back when I was training, that's exactly what they still focus a lot of their time on is the training, the conditioning, the strengthening, the technique, the coaching. And they just think they can eat anything they want because they're an athlete. And so they're missing that's an enormous piece of how they perform. And if they're truly looking for a competitive edge, they need to realize that nutrition is a key part of that because that helps optimize performance. All those other things are super, super important, but that nutritional piece is very key when it comes to fully optimizing and maximizing your performance. And this not only applies to just the foods that they eat, but also what they drink and staying super well hydrated. Because a lot of athletes think they can wait till they're thirsty to drink, but that's not the case. That's way too late. And if you're just 2% dehydrated, then the athlete's not going to feel thirsty, but it will definitely start to impair things like endurance performance. So those are all really important. So when we think of athletes, they are using so much energy and fuel to train and compete. And that has to be restored adequately. Nutrition is the only way to fuel themselves in the best way. And I don't, want to argue with people, but really there's no amount of training that can substitute for having the best nutritional fuel. And that intense training has to be sustained by your fuel. And the only way to sustain that is with proper fuel and nutrition.
Okay, thank you. So you have a three-part philosophy for training young athletes, which includes fuel, recovery, and protection. Can you expand on that? And how does Juice Plus fit into this?
Yeah, sure. So that's definitely a mantra that I try to live by every day. Fuel, recovery, and protection. So fuel, an athlete can't possibly perform at their best if they're not as healthy as possible. And so if their fuel is solely based on junk food, empty calories, um, it's not going to help support them or protect them, and they can contribute sometimes to being sick, as well as even things like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So we want to make sure that they're using the calories with value and not the empty calories, because their fuel is such an important part of how they're able to sustain their training. The recovery, and most athletes kind of get that. The recovery part, fewer athletes get, but they still get it because they realize that, okay, yeah, I've spent a lot of energy. I've emptied my fuel tanks, and I need to refill those fuel tanks up in order to do that again the next day. So the fuel tanks have to be refilled, but they have to be done adequately, and they have to be done in a certain time frame. So to best jumpstart the process of recovery, some carbs and protein need to be consumed within about that first 10 minutes after exercise, and then continuing on throughout the rest of the day. And if they're eating the healthy macronutrients of carbs, fats, and proteins with a lot of fruits and vegetables, then they're also getting the thousands of micronutrients that come with those whole fruits and vegetables. So these micronutrients include the phytonutrients and the antioxidants, which play a huge role in decreasing the micro damage from exercise in addition to the risk of illness. So that's where I get a lot of hang up from athletes, is this concept of protection, because they're like, I don't need protection because I'm an athlete. But they have to remember, I'm in the business of taking care of athletes who are constantly hurt, sick, exhausted, overtrained, and under-recovered. So they need protection from the muscle protein breakdown they generate, all the oxidative stress and the free radicals, the increase in cortisol they produce from physical and mental stress, as well as the immune suppression that comes from intense exercise. So athletes need that fuel, recovery, and protection because the protection portion of that is what literally determines the difference between being just fit versus being fit and healthy. So for me, that's one of the many reasons why I think something like Juice Plus is so important, because it also has specific research with high-level athletes showing it can reduce muscle tissue damage without losing strength or performance, and also maintaining a healthy immune function.
Wow, that's amazing. So what about protein though? Is plant protein really good enough for creating strong muscles?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that don't like that idea. And part of that, I think, stems around that a lot of plant proteins are not as easily digested as animal proteins. But there are some that are very effective at that, such as tofu. It's very easily digestible. And when you combine them, a lot of times you're not only getting better digestibility, but you're getting more of that variety. I think another reason is people think that there's not a plant protein that's going to have is going to be a complete protein and keep providing all of those essential amino acids. But again, that's not true. There's multiple sources that are complete proteins and have every essential amino acid. So tofu and other soy products and edamame, quinoa, hemp seeds, chia seeds, nutritional yeast, just to name a few. And I think what's important for people to know that all of the plants that go into making a plant protein powder, the benefit is they bring with them those tens of thousands of micronutrients to help make that plant protein now an actual protective protein powder that an athlete won't get in an animal protein. So for instance, a good example is using chocolate milk after sports. I hear that all the time, and it's not necessarily wrong. It has carbohydrate and protein, so it can absolutely help with recovery. But the sugar and the fat is not obviously healthy. And since it's not a plant source, there's absolutely no protective value with it at all. So again, it doesn't make it wrong, but I would certainly encourage athletes to use a carbohydrate protein source that helps recovery and then adds that protective benefit as well.
Yeah, I'll just throw this in. That's kind of like our complete shakes, our complete protein as well, and they have the antioxidants along with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So, well, we're in the midst of the USA hosting the World Cup, and watching these world-class athletes, it's apparent they need world-class endurance. But recovery is also important. Does Juice Plus have an influence on recovery?
Yes, it does, from a couple different perspectives. So even though the main source of recovery comes from refilling those fuel tanks and the energy stores with carbs and proteins, then that's where things like the macronutrient Juice Plus shake will come in, because it's got those beautiful plant sources of carbs and proteins. But the other part of recovery is also improved by having less oxidative stress, free radicals, protein breakdown, and immune suppression to actually recover from. And we know that the other Juice Plus whole food powders help with that process as well. So, as I mentioned, recovery is not only about the timing and the content, as I spoke about, but recovery also requires that adequate rehydration, as I spoke about, because that can affect performance. And then I don't want to leave out adequate sleep, because a lot of the athletes that come into my office are completely um, not getting enough sleep. They're exhausted. And we know that a lot of our reparative process happen at night when we're sleeping. And then if you're not getting enough sleep, it impairs your immune function, increasing your risk of illness, and then it also decreases reaction time and quick decision making, which are certainly important in things like soccer and many of our other sports.
Okay. Well, knowing that parents of young athletes want only the best for their children, special coaching, private traveling teams, for example, what is the best nutrition for younger growing athletes? Does it differ from adult athletes?
Um, in general, you certainly want them having healthy calories and calories with value as well, but there is a difference. because they all, everybody needs fuel, recovery, and protection. But the difference here is that children have two requirements for those calories with value. They need the calories, of course, to help have the fuel for their energy expenditure for their sports activity, but they also have to have calories to grow, to supply their body with all it needs to grow. And this is an enormous thing. So that's why a lot of these kids need to be consuming healthy foods literally all day long in small portions so that they can keep their metabolism up, keep supplying the energy fuel that they need for sports, but then also give their body what it needs to continue growing. So it is an important distinction.
Okay, thank you for that. Um, Juice Plus has a program called Healthy Starts, where an adult who orders Juice Plus can sponsor a child between the age of 4 and 25 to receive free Juice Plus fruit and veggies until they turn 26. Over 4 million families around the world have taken advantage of this. What impact do you see Healthy Starts having on families' health?
Well, I think of uh, the soil that plants grow in, and that it's really important to begin a healthy foundational soil for these children to grow up in, just like a plant. So as these families are doing these healthy actions together and starting developing those young tastes early on, it also develops a mindset, a true lifestyle and an approach to healthy eating that goes beyond the house and the table. It starts to bleed over into going shopping at the grocery store and how they make changes there. And then even inspiring some of these kids to start growing their own plants. And as these kids have been followed in the Healthy Starts program, I mean, they've followed hundreds of thousands of the millions of kids that are in this program, and the results show that they get sick less often. So obviously they're taking medications less often and seeing the doctor less often and missing school less often, and their parents are missing work less often, and they're drinking more water. They're more aware of what they're eating, and as their microbiome in their gut gets healthier, these kids are actually choosing to eat more fruits and vegetables that they wouldn't eat before on purpose. I think that's so great. I
It's
love
so
it.
cool, isn't it? Yeah, well, thank you so much. I want to ask you in conclusion, do you have any parting thoughts for all of us before we
Uh,
close the call?
sure. I think it just kind of boils down to one thing. I talk to athletes and families all the time, and I'm always trying to talk about training and technique and prevention and nutrition. And, they listen to me, but they're all interested in one thing: performance, right? It's all about, they want that edge. And I don't care if they're little leaguers or the Olympians, the most consistent number one thing that they want to know is what can give them a competitive edge. And so, to me, their nutritional fuel is really important for that edge, because everybody can train a lot and be strong and do all that stuff, but whoever has the best nutrition, I think, is going to win. And then when you think about that added protection, the micronutrient protection from all of those researched whole food powders of Juice Plus, to me, that provides an edge that I think so many people are actually searching for. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you for all the fantastic questions.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you on here. We are a little bit early. We still have until the bottom of the half hour. Would you be open to any questions?
Sure.
Does anybody have a question? If you do, you can unmute yourself.
Hey,
You talked
Doug,
about, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
You talked about cortisol. That thing's a big problem for me. I don't know how Juice Plus can correlate to helping diminish this stress and everything. I'm kind of new to the company, of course. And also, you talked about um, proteins in the soy, where I've heard it's like for my wife, it's an estrogen blocker and everything like that, right? It's got it. So can you expand a little bit on that for?
Sure, absolutely. And I think, when we look at the soy thing, obviously it's an entire discussion, but the source of the soy is the big deal. If it's been genetically modified, those are all the things that have been linked to certain problems. But again, when you're getting great non-GMO soy that's been water washed and all these things, these are beautiful sources of protein that anybody will agree on. It's just, I think it comes down to the sourcing. And so at least we know in our particular product that they use the non-GMO kind of soy, which is a very healthy source of protein. From the cortisol standpoint, this is a very important question. I'm glad you brought it up because of the emotional and the physical stress of exercise and daily life can lead to chronic cortisol elevation, which is very damaging in our system and contributes to all sorts of things. So Juice Plus itself doesn't necessarily lower your cortisol, but it helps kind of clean up a lot of the debris and the fallout from that, and a lot of the tissue damage and the chemical damage that occurs from it. But you still have to also do things to minimize cortisol. And even though there's not, I mean, some people say that magnesium will help reduce that. But also you have to just physically do things like whether it's meditation or deep breathing or whatever your favorite hobby is, even smiling just randomly throughout the day can also reduce cortisol. So there are things that can be done. Juice Plus itself is not going to do that by itself, but it's going to help with some of the side effects of the cortisol.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, I guess I just want to thank you so much again for being on. You're very sought after these days, and I appreciate you giving us this time.
Well, you're very, very welcome. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning, but I appreciate everybody's patience.
We had some on this end too, Paul, at my house. So it'd be great if the people would also, if we're done, can unmute yourselves and just shout out a word of something that you heard or learned or appreciate about having Dr. Paul on the call tonight.
Thanks.
I found it quite interesting about the family support
Great.
for athletes and stuff. And it's nice to know we have the family health program to help that. But I would certainly like to hear more about that family support in sports, what that means. But thank you so much, Doctor.
You're very welcome.
Paul, it's great to see you tonight.
Yeah,
Thanks so
really
much.
great.
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Paul.
Dr. Paul.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for hosting, Deb.
Thanks.
Good
Yeah,
night, everybody.
great format too. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hey.